my name is Tracy Jean. I have previously been in the property management industry for 19 years. And I would say that I was very successful at building rapport and building community. And that is basically what you need to do if you want to be a successful manager. Yes, we collect the rent. Yes, we file evictions. We walk the property. We do the marketing. We do the leasing. We do everything. But the number one thing is to keep the property full, keep your residents happy, and to build that reputation. And so I just want to give a disclaimer that in no way am I giving any legal advice. I am only doing an informative video just to kind of help residents out that may have questions or someone that has never rented before. I always took first-time renters right under my wing, just like if they were one of my kids. And I would explain to them, I am not an attorney. I cannot interpret your lease, but you do need to know what this lease says because it is a legal and binding document. And the first thing I would advise is know your dates. Know how long you're going to be locked into that lease. Of course, you need to know how much you're going to be paying on rent. Rent is always due on the 1st. If your lease says that you have a grace period till the 3rd or the 5th before late charges kick in, just remember, your rent is always due on the 1st of the month. It is late on the 2nd. Even though you don't have a late charge, you always want to have your rent paid prior to or on the 1st. Doesn't matter if it's a weekend or a holiday, but just kind of keep that in mind. Rent is always due on the 1st. Unless you have a special lease with someone that just owns a property, like a mom and pop that has rent houses and makes a special circumstance. But in the apartment industry, more than not, your lease is due on the 1st. It's late on the 2nd, even though you don't have late charges till the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or whatever day they have them. So just a little tidbit to kind of let you know, to have a squeaky clean, perfect rental history, always make sure that your rent is paid prior to or by the 1st of the month. Also check on your deposits and any fees that you pay. Most fees are just that. You do not get those back. Security deposits. Now, security deposits are in place so that the owner is protecting a little bit of their asset. Most deposits can run $300, $200. If you get a special, $99. Those don't pay for anything. I mean, basically a carpet clean, it really doesn't pay for much. So deposits don't mean a whole lot. I've had residents in the past that would say, well, you never give deposits back. And I would tell them, I do give deposits back. The way I manage my property is if my residents put an effort, if you can tell, because we would inspect units and I knew what the homes looked like. If you could tell that they actually made an effort, that oven's got to be clean. You cannot be leaving your not cleaned oven for 12 months with all kinds of stuff in the bottom of it. I mean, you have to clean it. Toilets, showers. I mean, this is stuff that I used to take for granted that people just did. No, I've seen lots of apartments. I've seen thousands of apartments, thousands of move outs. And people will say, oh, well, here's your key and it looks better than when I moved into it. And let me just tell you, 99 out of 100, that is not the case. A lot of people say it, but that is not the case. Very rarely do you have someone that leaves the unit in pristine or better condition. There have been cases where, yes, that is the case, but usually it's not. And it's usually the people that tell you that when they're turning their keys in that you're like, oh boy, what am I fixing to walk into? Because usually they're the ones that are not. I had someone leave me what I call a love letter in the Dropbox with their keys that told me how much they just really worked to clean the apartment, etc. And let me tell you something. I've worked the Dallas market, very competitive. I have worked the Oklahoma market, Southwest Oklahoma market. It's kind of different. But those people left there. I called my boss and said, this is criminal and I should contact DHS. And of course, I really can't do that, but it was so bad. They left bunk beds in the guest bedroom, which is where obviously the toys and stuff that they had left behind was for a minor to live in. There was dog feces on the carpet, hard, stuck. It was just the grossest thing. And it just made me think, why they even sent me the letter. I mean, why write the letter? Regardless to say, that was an extreme move out. It was the worst one I had ever. I mean, if I have to call my boss and really vent to him that this was criminal, it's pretty bad. Other than that, most people leave stuff. So here's what I would do. And it doesn't mean that your apartment manager does the same thing, but this is things that you can look at. If it didn't come in the apartment, don't leave it. I charged a lady one time $50 trash out because she left a phone book on the kitchen counter, and then griped to me because she was leaving it for the next person. And I said, that did not come with the apartment. I have to pay someone to take it to the dumpster. Don't leave anything. So when you're moving out, don't leave hangers, don't leave phone books, don't leave Q-tips, just anything, bobby pins. Make sure that if you don't clean the carpet, that you at least vacuum it. Check that oven. Make sure it is spotless. Check that tub, that toilet, and you don't want to leave anything. Most people will accidentally leave stuff, which is like a poster on the inside of a closet door, etc. So just make sure you know what your fees are, what your deposits are, and yes, can you get your deposit back? Most leases have deposits where it's fully refundable. Some have a catch where it says an admin fee or something is non-refundable out of that. When you have animals, not service animals because those cannot be in question, but if you have any pets, and pets are part of the family, you want to make sure that you pay your pet fees. If it's a fee, realize it's not refundable. Pay your pet rent, because pet rent basically is there because management or owners want responsible pet owners. So if you're paying for that animal to be there, we know that you are a responsible pet owner, because the people that just want to go get a puppy, they don't want to pay the fees. And so that's kind of how we look at that. And I'm just talking in general. This is just my personal experience. It does not have anything to do with any company, as I am a previous property manager right now. I've made the choice to go on to bigger and better things and just to grow myself. So just check those dates, check that. You also want to make sure you know when or how much time you need to give on a notice to vacate. So let's say that your lease expires in January and you're looking at buying a house or relocating or just moving. For whatever the reason is, you're happy, but you just want to change. I like change. I love change. So you want to make sure that you read the lease, because your lease, even if it expires January 31st, automatically renews on a month to month, which can have extra fees. So you need to remember that. So know if you need to give a 30-day written notice or a 60-day or a 90-day. Different companies have different things. Your lease will tell exactly how much time you're required by law to give a notice to vacate. Once you give your notice, make sure you put it in writing. What I always had my residents do was write their notice out. I would stamp it with my property stamp, and I would sign and date it and give them a copy. You always want a copy of everything, because I've been on properties where they sell. As soon as that property sells, the current management does not work for the new owner. They work for the old owner. So unless there is a negotiation or a hiring process there, you may be looking at a whole new person that can walk in and say, I don't have that. I don't see that in your file, or whatever the case is. So you always want to have your own backup just to cover yourself, because you want to make sure that you are doing your part. Don't leave it all on the management. Not at all. Don't leave it on management, because they're human. They can make mistakes. Stuff can get misfiled. Make sure you have your information. Always get a copy of your lease. Now they can email it to you. Have a hard copy, whatever you need to do. Always get a copy of your lease. And make sure that it's signed by both parties. I mean, it has to be a legitimate signed lease agreement. I mean, it's the two of you agreeing to, this is what we're going to do. So with the notice, just make sure, because you can lose your deposit, you can be a skip, no notice, and you don't want that, because you can be charged extra months of rent. Also, one thing to remember is that if you give a notice to vacate because your lease is up and something happens, doesn't matter if it's you can control it or not. If something happens and you do not move out by the date that you have given the notice to move out, do you know that you can be charged an accelerated rent? Because if the management loses the new person, you're going to be stuck there for that year. That's kind of how that works. You give authorization to pre-lease the apartment. If you do not move out, they call it a holdover. And holdover has, like I said, I'm not an attorney. I can't interpret it for you, but you can be charged that next person's lease, which could be a year's lease, 6-month lease. That's pretty expensive. So it's just some items that, I think people should know that people just don't know, especially if you're a first-time renter. It's a legal and binding document. Now, evictions. There are different evictions that can happen. So you can have where you don't pay rent and you receive a notice to vacate, notice to quit, basically is what that is. And it just says, if you're not planning to pay your rent, you need to be out because we're going to go file eviction on you. If it comes to that point where you get an eviction filed on you, if you go to the courthouse and you have not paid your rent, the judge is going to rule in favor for the owner. They're going to give you usually 5 days to vacate the unit. At that point, if you have not vacated the unit, turned your keys in, they can file a writ. A writ is where they're going to file, they're going to serve, they're going to send a peacemaker. A peacekeeper is either a sheriff or a constable. They will stand guard. They won't touch your stuff, but they're going to stand there and keep the peace while management moves all of your belongings to the curb and is left unattended. Now, that's an extreme case. Doesn't happen every day, but there are people that just don't understand the laws, don't know what's going to happen. And can you imagine? I can't imagine. I can't imagine that I've never been in the business before and just don't know anything at all. So that's a non-payment. If you're not planning to pay your rent, you might as well move out. You do not want a judgment on your record, especially if you're looking at that dream job or you're looking at buying a house or even renting again. Once the judge rules in the favor of the owner, then that judgment remains on your credit for so many years. There is nothing you can do or the management company or owners can do to get it off. So make sure that you do not get to a judge or courthouse situation. Another thing is you got to make sure you follow the rules. Most owners want to provide peaceful community for all residents. And so if you're that, I don't know, loud, partying, bass thumping, which I love music, but sometimes, especially, you need to know your community. How thin are the walls? I mean, if you're in there making a lot of noise and you get a lot of complaints, once you've gotten so many complaints and notices have been given, that leads to documentation that can be taken to a courthouse and a non-rent eviction filed. So just make sure you keep your rental history clean, and that way you have the upper hand when you go and you look for communities or you go to buy a house. It's a business that there's a lot of information. I would love to do lots of videos just with my knowledge. Times change and everything, but I just wanted to give just a couple of things just to let you know about deposits, dates. Get a copy of your lease. Make sure you read your lease or know what a lease says before you sign it. Most people, with my experience, they come the day of move-in. And they're so ready to move in, they sign anything. I could have had anything in the lease. And that's horrible. It really is. You should know it is a legal and binding document. Anyway, my name's Tracy. I just wanted to get on here and just help out, maybe give some good advice. But like I said, I am not an attorney. I do not have a copy of your lease, so I cannot interpret it for you. But this is just an informative video, and I hope to give more informative videos, not only to the residents, but to the managers. If all managers would manage a property the way that I did, with customer service being the number one thing, there would be so many happy residents. I mean, really happy residents. I try to treat all of my residents as I wanted to be treated, and that was very successful for me. You got to listen to them. You got to take the time for them, and you really got to care about them. If you don't care about your residents, then you really need to find a different job, because it is so rewarding to be in the property management industry where you are building community. You have to remember that. You can't be the person that answers the phone and is rude to the person wanting to lease an apartment. It's just not cool. But anyway, that's a different video. So I just wanted to get on here, introduce myself, see if I can help somebody out. If you have any questions, just definitely put them down below. Don't know if I'll have the answer, but I can always look it up. I know Google's really good with things, but just to let you know, I've worked in 2 states, Texas and Oklahoma, and I will let you know that one of those states is the laws are for the owners of the property, and one of those states, the laws favor the residents. So you really just need to know what's going on with your lease and what you're signing yourself into. All right, it is Sunday, so take care, God bless, and have a great week.